My name is Jedidiah Usara, and I'll be taking us through the session today along with my colleague Muideen, who is also on the call right now. Right, so we'll be going through how you can get into the world of data science and would basically be helping you get introduced to how you can start writing your very first lines of Python code even with no prior experience at all. All right, so this session promises to be an amazing one, packed with a lot of knowledge that we're going to gather in the session. Without any further ado, we'll be diving into the conversation. But I'd like to also get a bit of engagement from everyone on the call. So I'd like you to share with me your name and where exactly you are joining from in the call chat. I'll be pulling up my screen as we proceed with the session. But please, I would really appreciate our engagement in the call chat. So please go on in there to type in the message and let me know your name as well as where you're joining the call from. I'm pretty sure we have people joining from across the globe, and I'm very much interested in getting to meet everyone, even though it's virtually. All right, so please go on to let me know your name and where you're joining the call from. Awesome. We have Ini from Netherlands. We have Chinwe from UK, Sarah from Canada, Simbo from Senegal. We have Taiwo from Abuja, Nigeria. Wonderful. Olumide from Lagos. That's awesome. It's great to have each and every one of us in today's session. And in a quick moment, we'll be diving into how you can write your very first lines of Python as a total beginner. All right. I'll be doing justice to breaking down the items that we have prepared and be going into this from the very ground all the way up to implementing a practical example of how Python as a programming language can be leveraged for businesses. Now, the name sounds scary, all right? Python. It sounds scary, but trust me when I say it's one of the simplest programming languages you can learn out there. It's arguably, a lot of people would argue this, but I stand on this always. Python is arguably the simplest programming language you could ever learn. So don't be scared of the name. It sounds scary like the snake, but don't be scared of the name. I assure you, we're going to have a wonderful time in this session and you'd see how easy Python actually is. So let's get into this. Now, we are here as a team from Tenalytics. I'm sure we've probably heard of Tenalytics before now. Some of us have probably been in a previous masterclass. Can you just indicate if you have? Type in a one in the chat if you've been in a previous masterclass before now. If this is your first masterclass, you can go on to type a 0. And while you do that, I'll be going into introducing Tenalytics. Tenalytics is a leading ed tech brand. Tenalytics is a leading ed tech brand that is focused on helping people of the Black community and Africans as well to break into the field of tech. We've been able to identify that there's an underrepresentation of people of the Black community and Africans as well in the tech community. And we have taken it upon ourselves as a duty to ensure that people are equipped with the necessary skills, knowledge, and experience that is required to excel as tech professionals and compete in the global tech job market. And that is what we have come here to do. That is what we have come here to discuss. We have been able to do this for over 5 years now, and we've trained thousands of people, helping them to break into the world of tech across the US, UK, Canada, and even in Africa. We run trainings across multiple programs from data analytics, business analytics, data engineering, data science, financial analytics, Scrum, cybersecurity, and so on. So we'll be taking you through all of these things from basics, from the ground up into becoming solid professionals and even being able to land a job, right? We're very intentional about this process and we'll be taking you through all of this. Now, who exactly is in front of you and what qualifies me to actually take you through this session? My name is Jedidiah Usara. I have a background in computer science and I've been in the world of tech for nearly half a decade now. I've trained thousands of participants, helping them to break into the world of tech. And I myself have worked in the industry. I've worked as a data analyst, as a data scientist, machine learning engineer, Azure MLOps engineer with organizations across the US, UK, Canada, and beyond. I've worked with organizations that span across industries like marketing, finance, education, aviation, automobile, and so much more. And I'm bringing all of that wealth of experience in the practical industry. And not just that, as well as in the classroom, training thousands of people and helping them to make that transition. I'll be bringing this blend of knowledge and experience into today's session, as well as in every other conversation that we are going to be having on the program. All right. With me on the call is my colleague, Muideen. I'm just going to give him a second to quickly introduce himself and then would proceed to the next part. Hello, Muideen.
Hi, Jedi. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Muiden Ade Akoni, like you can already see, and I have experience in both as a data analyst, data scientist, business analysis, and I've been able to help organizations streamline their business operations for as long as you can remember. And I've also helped a lot of people, I think over 500 people that have zero knowledge in tech. I've been able to help these people transition into the tech space. So tonight, I'll be giving you, just with my colleague, as he's doing the technical bits, I will be guiding you on how you can leverage everything Jedediah will talk about to get yourself into the tech space. I have experience that cut across the ed tech, the finance space, logistics, FMCG, and even the head tech space. Okay, so sit back, relax, and we have you covered tonight. All right, Jedediah?
All right. Thank you so much, Muideen. I'm sure we are going to be learning a lot from myself as well as from you later on in the session. Awesome. Now, in today's session, we have four major items prepared that we are going to be going over. First off, we are going to be writing some Python code. And like I said, Python is very easy, arguably the simplest programming language out there. All right. We'll also be looking at the pathway to becoming a data scientist and actually securing a job. Muideen would also be sharing details about our extensive internship here at Analytics and the special offer that we have packaged for you. Without further ado, let's quickly get right into the work. Now, the tool we are going to be using for today's session is called Google Colab. And we're going to be running Python code within this environment. Just like we have Microsoft Word for typing documents, we have Excel for working with spreadsheets and data structured in tabular format, right? You have apps like VLC that you use to watch movies, right? That's what that application is designed to do. We also have an environment, an application that is designed to help you run experiments as a data scientist. It allows you to write code, run them, and be able to analyze data as a data science professional. Now, there are multiple options, but the one we are going to be using for tonight's session is called Google Colab. Again, this app is free, totally free. All you need to access it is simply an internet connection and a computer. You could literally run Google Colab on your mobile phone and actually write code, run them, and get your output. All right. So I'll be taking us through these tools and would be seeing a practical implementation of how to actually leverage this tool to work on data, to write our code and actually analyze and deliver business value. All right. So very quickly, I'm going to be sharing my screen and then we'll dive into this work. All right, just another second and then we'll be able to get started. Now, for you to gain access to Google Colab, all you have to do is go into your browser, like I said. The only thing you need is an internet connection and a computer. You could literally do this from your mobile phone. All right, all you need is an internet connection and a computer. All right, so you can get into your browser, whatever browser you use, and simply go on to search for Google Colab. All right, so I can simply do a Google search now and search for Google Colab. And once I do that, It will load up in a quick moment and you see Google Colab at the very top. All you have to do is click on this and then you'll be able to access it and make good use of this tool. Go on to conduct whatever analysis you need to do or whatever task you need to do. For today's session, you don't need to do this along with me. I'll be providing the resources to you so that you'll be able to do this on your own. However, it's very important that you fill the attendance form that my colleagues are sharing in the chat. All right. For you to have access to the resources and materials that are going to be used in today's session, it's very important that you are filling out that form. All right. Awesome. Now, we are going to dive right into this and start writing our very first lines of Python code. We're going to start by looking at this environment and understanding what it is. Like I explained, this is called Google Colab, and we can leverage it for writing Python code and actually running it within this environment. Now, within this environment, there are two types of containers or two types of areas that you can actually type in. The first is called a markdown, and the second is called a cell. Within a markdown, whatever you type in there is interpreted as plain text. So the environment understands that this is just plain text and it does not try to run it as a code. All right, so when I type anything inside a markdown, it recognizes that this is just text. Do not run it as code. Meanwhile, when I type something inside a cell, inside an actual code cell, it tries to interpret that as Python code. So if you look at this text over here, it says, welcome to Python. This is in a markdown cell. So if I run this, Python does not interpret it as a piece of code. However, if I do the same thing here and I say, welcome to Python, when I run this here, it will give me an error. And why is that so? Because this is a cell that expects actual Python code and not just plain text. All right. So you see that this gives me an error. It says invalid syntax. That's because it tries to interpret this as a piece of code rather than a piece of text. And that's why I'm getting an error. Now, how do you create these boxes? The first is by looking at the top here. You'd see two buttons. One says code, the second says text. When I use the code button, it allows me to add a cell for running code. When I use the text button, it allows me to add a markdown cell. All right, is this making sense? Is all of this making sense? Are we on track so far? Are we on track so far? Awesome, awesome. So I've been able to explain the difference between a cell and a markdown. Now, there are other ways you can actually add text into your code without having it interpreted as actual code. So you can have text in between your code and have this environment able to run that for you without interpreting it as code. And this idea of having that is called having comments in between your code. So for example, I can come in here and just ask it to print Jedediah. Don't worry about what I'm typing out. I'm going to explain what all of these entails. But this is basically Python code. And when I say print Jedediah, it gives me Jedediah. All right? It gives me Jedediah. If I cleared this out and I simply typed Jedediah and I run this, it's going to give me an error. Right? It's going to give me an error. It does not recognize anything like Jedediah. Right? So what can I do if I need to have Jedediah in here and say I need to add a line of text and say this is my first Python code. This is text that I want to add into my code. So it explains what this is. Now, when I run this, it gives me an error. It says invalid syntax. How can I embed this inside my code without having issues? I simply convert it into a comment by adding a hashtag in front of that line of code. So when I run this again, you see that I do not have any errors anymore. This is simply a comment. So when it comes here, it basically interprets this as, oh, this is not something I need to interpret as code. And then it jumps over it. So under this, I can now have my actual code and say print Jedediah. And now this runs and it interprets this as a comment without running it as a code. And then it's able to give me the output from this actual Python code. All right. So you see that we're already learning something. in the very first few minutes of the session, we're already picking up on certain details, right? Now, within this Python environment, there are specific kinds of characters or there are specific formats in which Python recognizes the details, the text, the numbers that you're going to be working with. There are specific kind of ways that it interprets them, or there are specific formats that they have to be in for it to interpret them and actually work with them. These three major foundational types of data, right, that you can impute in a Python environment and work with are integers, floats, and strings. Integers, floats, and strings. And the simple way to put them is integers basically refers to whole numbers. Okay, I'm getting a lot of messages in the chat. Is this large enough? Is this large enough?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Um, all right, so let's proceed back with this. I've explained that there are three major forms that your data has to be in for Python to be able to interpret it. Your integers, floats, and strings, right? And what are these three major types? Your integers basically refers to whole numbers. So a number like 10 is a whole number. If I run this, Python recognizes this as a number and returns 10 for me, right? A number like 512. If I run that, that is an integer and Python recognizes it, can run this and give me an output. All right. Now, how do I confirm what type of data this is? How can I confirm if this is actually an integer or if this is a float and I'm actually just misinterpreting it? I can use a function called type. And then inside my bracket, I can pass in that value, for example, 512. And when I run that, it tells me what data type this is. And this is an integer, like I explained, right? You can see this is a whole number without any decimal parts. So this is the first data type I want us to get introduced to, the integer. Now, the second would be floats, which is very similar to the integers. These are also numbers. However, they are decimal numbers. For example, the value of pi, 3.142, right? If I run this, it returns the same number for me because it recognizes this type of data. It recognizes this, can interpret it, can actually work with it. I can say 3.142 plus 3.142. And if I run this, it gives me the right answer by performing that addition because this is a type of data that it recognizes and can interpret. So if I come in here and going to ask, what is the data type of 3.142? All right, if I run this, you see that this tells me it's float because this is a decimal number. And it doesn't matter as long as there's a decimal part. Even if this was 3.0, as long as it has a decimal part, it is interpreted as a float. Now, the third and final data type is the string. And this allows you to pass in text characters. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a number. It doesn't necessarily have to be a text. It can be a combination of text and numbers as long as they are enclosed within parentheses. It is recognized as a string. And this gives you the flexibility to type in multiple forms of data. However, you have to keep in mind that these forms of data are interpreted as strings of text. So if, for example, I came in here and typed Jedediah, we've been able to see earlier that when I run this, I get an error because this is not something this environment currently recognizes. So how do I make this recognizable by this environment? I enclose this inside quotation marks. Now, once I put quotation marks around it and I run this, it is now recognized by Python as a string data type. If you notice, for my floats and integers, I did not need to put a quotation mark around them. I simply went on to type the numbers and they were interpreted. For strings, whatever collection of characters you have that are enclosed in quotation marks, they are interpreted as strings of text. So if I come in here and use the type function to check, okay, what is Jedediah? And take note again, this Jedediah is still within quotation marks. So I'm checking the type of this text, Jedediah, in quotation marks. When I run this, it tells me this is a string. This is a string. If I take this same line of code and I brought it down here, remember we saw 3.142 as a float, right? If I come in here and I replace Jedediah with 3.142 and I run this, it tells me that this is a string. Can you guess why? Because of the quotation marks around it. All right, so whenever you have a collection of characters with quotation marks around them, within quotation marks, they are interpreted as strings. Right? They are interpreted as strings. So far, we've been able to cover the three major data types. We have strings, we have integers, and we have floats. Type a 1 in the chat if all of this makes sense so far. Just tell me, type a 1 in the chat if this is making sense so far. Awesome. Thank you, Deji. Fantastic, fantastic. All right, so we understand the foundational data types. Now, another important concept I want us to go over are variables. Now, what exactly are variables? Variables are basically containers, right? Think of the jar you have at home, right? Some of us have ice cream containers right now in our fridge. But between you and I, we know that it's not ice cream that's inside that container, right? If you are one of them, just raise your hand like this. Don't raise it fully so we don't see you. All right. So some of us have containers in our homes, and these containers are able to hold specific kinds of content. Now, it's the same thing with variables. Think of variables as those containers, as that ice cream bowl that probably now has egusi soup inside and is kept inside your freezer, right? So think of a variable as that ice cream bowl, right? And think of it in this way. It's a container that can hold any kind of content. You can decide to put water inside. You can decide to have egusi inside. You can decide to actually have ice cream inside that bowl. You can decide to have your buttons, extra buttons inside there. You can decide to keep any kind of material inside there as long as it's able to contain it. Think of variables in the same way. However, these containers, which are variables, can only hold one content at a time. The same way when you have that bowl of ice cream, at the time it's holding ice cream, at the time it contains ice cream, you would not be putting egusi soup inside. Yes? You would not be adding water into that bowl. If you want to store water in the bowl, then you are storing water. You're not storing water and ice cream at the same time. The same applies to variables. They are basically containers that allow you to store specific values. And whenever you call a variable, you don't get the variable itself. It is the content that has been assigned to that variable that is retrieved. Type a 1 in the chat if we are getting an idea of what variables are. Just type a 1 in the chat if this is making sense. We are going to see a very practical example. Like I said, it's simply a container that can only hold one content at a time. In our case, it can only hold one data type or one piece of data, one piece of detail, one piece of information. So for example, if I define a variable called name, and the value I assign to it is Jedediah, right? This is the variable name. I assign the value of Jedediah to it. Whenever I call name, guess what I'll get? I'll get Jedediah. Because like I said, name has now been defined as a container. So whatever I assign to it, whenever I call that container, I get the content that has been added into that container. But again, like I explained, we can only have one content inside this container at a time. So if I come back and I say name is equal to 35, and I run this, If I come back to call name again, it's no longer going to return Jedediah, because the moment I assigned a new value to it, it disposed whatever value was inside, and then it takes on this new value. So it can only hold one content at a time. It was initially called name, the variable was called name, and the value that was assigned to it was Jedediah. Take note of these two parts of this example I have here. The left part is the variable name, all right? It's called name. And then there's an equal to, which is the assignment operator. And then the value that comes after that equal to is now the value that I am assigning to this variable. I can assign absolutely anything to a variable. I can assign a name. We've seen an example. I've assigned a string of text, which is one type of data. I've also assigned an integer, right? So instead of making this name, let me make it age. So this is now an integer I'm assigning to a variable. Your variable can be anything, right? You can give your variable name cow, dog, container, sheep, whatever you want, you can actually assign as a variable name. There are rules governing variable names assignment. And now that we understand what a variable is and the kind of content it can hold, which is practically everything, a variable can be assigned values of code. So instead of typing age is equal to 35, I could say age is equal to print hello world. I could say age is equal to print hello world. If I run this, and then I come down here and I call age, guess what happens? It runs that code and prints out hello world for me, right? It runs that code and prints out hello world for me. So this is how variables work. You can practically assign anything at all to a variable. Anything at all to a variable. It could be a piece of text. It could be a number of characters. It could practically be anything. All right? Practically anything. Now, we've been able to understand what variables are. We've seen the different types of data. We've understood that we can assign a type of data to a variable name, and whenever we call that variable name, we get that type of data. There are rules governing how variable names are assigned. I've also attached a couple of information that guides us on how to go about that. For the sake of time, we might not be able to go over this. However, we're going to be implementing some of these rules, and you can go over this when the materials are provided to you. All right, now we'll be going into the next phase of what we have prepared for tonight's session. Give me a thumbs up or type a 1 in the chat if everything is making sense so far and you are really getting a hold of what we are going over. We're going to be building on the knowledge that we have gathered so far, one step at a time, and we'll be seeing a practical implementation of combining all of this knowledge together and executing a particular task. Type a 1 in the chat if it's making sense so far. Thank you, Dimeji. All right. In the previous text that we had typed out, we used a function called the print function. This is inbuilt in Python. Whenever you call the print function and then you pass something into it, it basically returns the output or whatever was passed into that print function. So if I say print 4, for example, it prints out the number 4. How about when I say print age? What do you think my output will be? Can anyone guess? What do you think my output would be if I say print age and I run this? It's going to say none. Why? Because age is a variable that was defined before. This is age over here, and I defined it to be hello world. So if I come back here and I say print age, what does it do? It returns whatever was assigned to that variable. This is a variable which we have defined at the top here. So when we call this variable, we get the output age. If I wanted to print out the text age, this is not the way to do it. The way to do this is to make sure that this age is within quotation marks. Do you remember this now? Because now I want to print out a piece of text. So it has to be enclosed in quotation marks. That way, it is interpreted as a string of text. So when I run this now, it now gives me actually age as a piece of text rather than giving me that value. All right. When I call age without the quotation marks, it tries to run that variable which I have defined as age, and it calls out whatever value was assigned to that variable, which is hello world. Type a 1 in the chat if these nuances are beginning to make sense. It's beginning to get clearer. So when you have a piece of text you want to print out, you pass that in quotation marks, and that is interpreted as a string of text. If you pass a text without quotation mark, it would be assumed to be a variable, right? And if there's no value assigned to that variable, you are most likely going to have an error. For example, if I came in here and said print gender, remember we have not defined any variable as gender before now. So if I run this, what does it give me? It gives me an error. It says name gender is not defined because it's assuming that this is a variable, but it cannot find anywhere we have registered this gender as an actual variable. I hope all of this makes sense. I'm getting quite a number of ones in the chat, so I want to believe that we are all on track and this is all making sense. Now we've been able to go over what variables are, how they exist, how we can call these values. All you need to do is pass in a particular value, call that out, and then you get your response. So if we come back in here, I can pass a piece of text in here, right? I can pass a piece of code. Now, look at this very quick nuance, right? I say print 4, but this print is spelled with a capital P. When I run this, it's going to give me an error. And the reason is because this print is spelled with a capital P. If I change this to be a small p, it will run just fine and print out the 4. But the moment I make it a capital P, it gives me an error. That's because the print function within Python is meant to be spelled with a small p. And Python is a case-sensitive programming language. So if you are supposed to spell something with a small letter and you end up spelling it with a capital letter, you get an error. A very good example is the variable we defined before. We defined age as a variable, right? So if I call print age, it gives me hello world, which is the value that has been assigned to this variable. If I make this age to be a capital A and then the remaining G, and I run this, it will give me an error and say it's unable to find this variable, right? So Python is case sensitive. You have to be very careful when working with Python. If something is meant to be spelled with a capital letter, make sure it's spelled with a capital letter. If it's meant to be spelled with a small letter, make sure it's spelled with a small letter. All right. So all of this is just needs bits and pieces of guidelines that will help us to write neat and proper code. Now I'm beginning to come in here to define a few variables, right? Name, Jedediah, age 29, account balance, and this is what I have, currency, and this is what I have. When I run these variables, I can now go on to call each one of them individually. If I say print balance, for example, this has quotation marks, so it is interpreted as a string. But when I say print balance, which is the variable I have defined here without quotation marks, it actually gives me the value, right? It actually gives me the value. Now look at something interesting here. If I wanted to add this account balance, right? Let's assume this is my account balance and I wanted to add this into the code I'm writing. And I say your account balance is, and I want to add the account balance here. If I run this, I don't have the account balance here. What I can do is come in here and actually type it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.89. So if I run this, it basically gives me the output and tells me what my account balance is. But the flaw with this is the fact that I won't be able to make changes to this. This is hard coded into my piece of code. So what if my account balance gets updated? If I withdraw some money, how does this get updated? How will this reflect in this message? We can take advantage of this second type of print statement, all right? It's called the F string print statement. What you do is add an F in front of that string of text that you want to pass in. And then where you want your variable to come in, the value embedded inside a variable, you simply pass that variable and then you put it inside curly brackets. So for example, instead of just saying your account balance is and then typing out the number, what I'll do is I have defined my account balance to a variable over here, right? My account balance has been defined into a variable, and this is the value. And remember, a variable can be updated. The value inside the variable can be updated. So if I withdraw some money, this value will reduce. If some money gets into my account, this value will increase. And I want this to be dynamic with my code. If I type it in manually, it means whenever there's a withdrawal, I have to come in here, do the calculation, and make that update. All right? But to save us that stress, you can actually call the variable BALANCE. Right now, it's being interpreted as a string of text. So how do I make sure that it's interpreted as a variable? I make sure that this balance is inside curly brackets. And now you see that this balance has a different color from this balance. All right? This is a string of text. And this, because it is within this curly brackets, even though it's still enclosed in quotation marks, is interpreted as a variable. And you will try to read whatever balance was attached to this variable. So now when I run this, instead of saying your account balance is balance and then giving me the value, it says your account balance is, and then it gives me the value. I didn't need to hard code it in here, but because I've defined this variable, once I call it inside my print statement, I get an outcome. Give me a thumbs up if this makes sense so far.
Jedediah, we can't hear you, Jedediah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you now.
All right. Thank you, Muideen. Thank you, Ernest Dimeji. Fantastic. So we've been able to see how we can actually write pieces of code. We've been able to see how we can make a print statement dynamic by embedding variables into a print statement. Now we'll be looking at an input function that also helps us to make our work a little bit more dynamic. Generally, when writing pieces of code, you want to avoid hard coding things as much as possible. As much as you can, you want to avoid hard coding items. For example, the account balance, rather than typing it in manually, you want to be able to have something like this that is dynamic so that if this variable is updated, it automatically reflects in here. So for example, if I come in here and I change my account balance from this number and it becomes 45,000, for example, if I run this, and I come back here and run this piece of code that says to show my account balance. If I run the first one, it's still the same thing because this was hard-coded. But if I run this second one, you'd see that that account balance has now been updated to 45,000 naira. So you see how variables makes your code dynamic rather than making it hard-coded and you need to go over it again and update it. All right? Now we'll be looking at another function that helps us to make our code interactive, more dynamic. And this is called the input function. What does this allow you to do? It allows you to pass in any kind of variable. So any kind of value, all right? And this can be assigned to a variable as well. Now, when I call the input function and I run this, it basically allows me to type in anything at all. So I can come in here and type Jedediah. And when I hit enter, it gives me my value as Jedediah. It returns the Jedediah, which I typed in there. So this input function allows the user to interact with the code. So if you need some kind of input, some type of value from whoever is interacting with the code, you can pass an input function embedded in the code, and then it will allow them to actually type in the values that are going to be passed in. So earlier, I defined a variable called name, and I made sure that the name was defined in there. Instead of doing that, to make this code dynamic, I can basically come in here and say name would be equal to input. So right now, I'm not defining a value that's assigned to this variable name. Instead, I'm making it dynamic by allowing whoever is interacting with this code to input a value. So if I run this, And then whoever is interacting with this comes into the code and they see this value that says name or this input box that's asking them to pass in something. They can come in here and say, oh, my name is Muideen. When he types it in and hits enter. Now, when I come down here and call name, right? This cell is still running. Just give this another second. All right, so this is good. When I come here and call the variable name, guess what happens? I get Muideen. I did not have to hard code Muideen into the actual code. I simply passed an input function, and when Muideen came to interact with this code, it asked for an input. Muideen went on to pass in their name, and we were able to get the name Muideen assigned to this variable. Now, there's a fundamental flaw with this, with the input function, and that is the fact that anything that's passed into this input function is automatically converted into a string. All right? Anything that's sent into this, anything that's saved in here is automatically formatted into a string. So if I had defined this as age and I pass the input function, and then Muideen comes in here to type in his name. Even though what I'm expecting is an actual age, if I run this cell, Muideen has the option to come in here and type Muideen, right? Because there's no context, we are just in a blank box. Muideen comes in here and just types Muideen. This value Muideen has now been assigned to a variable age. And when I call age and expect a number, what will I end up getting? Muideen, which is a string of text. So by default, the input function takes whatever you pass into it as a string of text. This is another example. Even if Muideen came here and typed 35 and hit enter, if we call age, what do we get? We are most definitely going to get that 35. However, that 35 would be interpreted as a piece of string, as a string of text. You can see that this is enclosed in quotation marks. So this is interpreted as a string of text. So how do we address this issue? We do that by making sure that we enforce the data type. So for the age, we are expecting an integer, right? Because someone cannot be 3.5 years old. Someone can say they are 4.2 years old. How do you calculate that? How do you interpret that? So how do we do this? We specify what the data type we want is. We want an integer. So we say int, and then pass this input function inside the int function. That way we are specifying that whatever is passed into this input has to be an integer. It has to be an integer. So when we run this, you see that now we have a box. Now Muideen, who typed his name before, decides to come here and type Muideen again. Once we run this, we get an error. And why do we have an error? Because this is expecting an integer. We have enforced it in our code that whatever is passed into the age has to be an integer. So if we look at the error, it says invalid lateral for int, because it's expecting an integer, but we passed in a string of text. If we run the same piece of code again, and we imputed 35, we actually get the right output. All right, we actually get the right output. You see, it gives us 35 without any errors. Now, another flaw we have observed is that there's no context to what is required as an input. If we run this, it simply gives us a box and asks us to type something. So Muideen, who kept on typing his name, assumed that this code was asking for his name. We have enforced this in the code that it has to be an integer, but Muideen is still typing his name because there's no context to what exactly he's meant to type in here. So Muideen can get in here and type in, or what we can do to the code is come in here. Let me stop this from running. What we can do is come in here into the code, and within the input function, we can add a string of text and say type in your age. So now when I run this, we see this comes up with the box that allows us to type in a particular value. But now there's a message that says type in your age. So if Muhyiddin comes here, he knows exactly what he's expected to type. He's not expected to type his name. What's he expected to type? His age. So Muhyiddin can go in here and say, oh, I am 35 years old. And when he hits enter, we get the value 35. So if we come into a new cell and we actually call the variable age, what do we get? We get whatever age Muhyiddin had defined before, which is 35. So if, for example, Dimeji comes to interact with this code again, all right, the code asks, what is your age? Type in your age. Dimeji says, oh, I am 16 years old, for example, right? And he hits enter. When we call that variable age again, guess what we get? We get 16 instead of 35. We get 16 because that's the most recent age that has been entered into the code. Give me a 1 in the chat if this is making sense. So we see how the input function works. Type a 1 in the chat if this is making sense. Awesome, awesome. We can do basic calculations like addition, right? We can ask for an input function, pass in a variable name, for example, item 1 and item 2. Ask for an input. Oh, how much did this item cost? All right, item 1. How much did this item cost? We can add a string in here to say, how much did this item cost? And then we can repeat the same thing for the second item, for the item 2 variable. So here we are defining two variables, item 1, item 2. How much did this item cost? At the end of the day, we want to calculate the total amount for both of these items, right? And how do we do that? By adding item 1 and item 2. So you see, instead of writing the actual numbers, instead of saying, oh, item 1 is 50 naira, item 2 is 100 naira, and then go on to do the calculation ourselves manually, all we have to do is run this by, first of all, defining a variable, and then passing an input function that requests for the price of that item. So when the price is entered, you're able to run this and actually perform calculations on it. But looking at this, there's one flaw we can still observe. And this flaw is something we discussed in the previous example. Right now, we are asking for how much did the item cost. However, I explained that with the input function, whatever you pass by default is interpreted as a string. And what that means is we can't do calculations on it because it's a string. So we need to make sure that this is corrected to say, oh, it has to be an integer, and all these other details, everything else has to be within the bracket for that int function in front of it, right? So this just specifies that, oh, whatever input is coming here has to be an integer. Now we can make this float because we are talking about money now, right? We can have 10 naira, 50 kobo, right? Which can also be expressed as a fraction, right? Or as a decimal number, right? So we can interpret this, instead of int, we can make it float actually, because this is money and it can actually exist as a decimal value, right? So we have to define that and specify the type of data we expect in here. Now, when we run this, the code runs and it asks us, how much did this item cost? That's for the first item, item 1. How much did this item cost? Item 1 costs 200 naira. We hit enter. Then it goes on to ask us, how much did this item cost? Again, for the second item. And then we can come in here and say, oh, the second item costs 23 naira. And when we hit enter, it goes on to run these two, calculates the total, and then gives us our output and says 223 naira. Again, we can make this dynamic, right? Add a piece of text to it. Instead of just having total amount, can add a string of text to it, right? Just like we did previously. We put our quotation marks to make sure that this is a string of text. And then this variable, we make sure that it's inside curly brackets, all right? And finally, we put an F in front of the first quotation mark. Now, inside this quotation marks, we can go on to pass our strings or our piece of text and say the total costs is, and then we get our total amount, which is the variable that has been defined here. So we can say, how much did this item cost? So we, instead of this, we can say, how much does item 1 cost? All right. And then instead of this, we can say, how much does item 2 cost? How much does item 2 cost? And that way we know what we are entering for what specific value. So let's run this over again. Now it's asking, how much does item 1 cost? All we have to do is come in here and type in the cost of item 1, 45 naira, for example. We hit enter, and then it asks us, how much does item 2 cost? Item 2 costs 50 naira. When we hit enter, it tells us the total cost is 95, right? And then you see that our code is now dynamic. We don't need to type in and say, oh, item 1 is equal to 50 naira. Item 2 is equal to 25 naira. We don't need to define that in the code. We simply have an input function that makes this dynamic. What's a practical application of this? This can be embedded into an application at the front store, right? So all we need to do is simply go on to impute the prices of each product. If customer 1 comes in, how much was the first item they bought? We impute. How much was the third item? The math is done automatically. We don't need to crack our brains. We don't need a calculator. As long as we are inputting these values, we simply get an output that is fast and correct. And by the time the next customer comes in, all we need to do is run the code again and input those values, and we get our final output. Is all of this making sense, everyone? Is all of this making sense? Type a 1 in the chat if we are all on track with all of this. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. We've been able to see how this can be implemented practically. We've been able to see how this can be implemented in a practical scenario. All right. We'll be able to see how this can actually be used in a practical setting. You are now seeing how Python can be leveraged to simulate real world interactions. We can put that into our code, make certain processes easier, make certain processes a lot more efficient. All right. So this makes life easy for the cashier. This also makes life easy for the customer as well as for the business. We can go on to do something simple like having a discount tier within the business and say, for example, oh, if a customer is spending above 500, right? If your customer is spending above 500, they qualify for a 20% discount. And how can we do that? We can do that using conditional statement. We can do that using conditional statements and say, oh, if the total amount is equal to or greater than 500, if you're spending more than 500, give this person the discount. All right, we can go on to use conditional statements for this. I'm going to add a blank cell and take us through all this process step by step. Now, the first part of this conditional statement is passing an if statement. When you pass an if statement, in here, you can go on to pass a variable. For example, if age, right, is equal to 35. If age is equal to 35, what do you want to happen if the age is equal to 35? So it means if we are calling age is equal to 35, it means age has to be a variable that has been defined before. So we are now saying if this age is equal to 35, put a colon. You can now go to the next line and then specify what you want to happen if this condition is met. So this first line, after the if statement, you get to pass a condition. And what's our condition here? The age has to be 35. And if this person's age is 35, we are saying print, you get a 35% discount. So we're only giving discounts to those whose ages are 35. Let's say the business is turning 35 this year, and we've decided, oh, to celebrate our anniversary, we are deciding to give a 35% discount to anyone who is 35 years old and is buying a product from us. Now we can say, after passing this condition, We've also passed out what we want as our output if this condition is met. What if this condition is not met? What happens? There's nothing here to indicate what happens if this condition is not met, right? So how do we pass a statement? How do we say what we want to happen if this condition is not met? We can have an else statement. So if this condition is met, give me this outcome. If the condition is not met, we'll just say print in strings now. Thanks for shopping with us. So if you are 35 years old, you get a 35% discount. If you're not, thanks for shopping with us. Goodbye. See you again. And when we run this code, what do we get? We get an error. Why? Because age has not been defined. Okay, age is defined. The error we have is in here. The error we have is in here. Remember I explained earlier when we were defining variables. I explained that there are three things that makes up the variable, right? The variable name, the assignment operator, and then the value you are assigning to that variable. The age here, total amount, for example, is a variable name. Equal to is the assignment operator, and 50 is the value we are assigning to this variable. However, when we come here, we are not trying to assign a variable. What we are doing is confirming, we are comparing the variable age, whatever value was attached there, is it the same thing as the value that we see here? So instead of using a single equal to mark, we are meant to use double equal to. The single equal to is for variable assignment, and double equal to is for comparison. All right. So if I add a cell above and I run age, what do I get? Age is 16 right now. I can define age to be age is equal to 35. And when I run this, I have now defined this as a variable. This is now a variable. But this is not variable assignment. What we are doing here is comparing. Right? Is age equal to 35? Let me make this 16 again. So age is 16. When I run this, age is currently 16. When I run this code to say if age is 35, give us a 35% discount. It says thanks for shopping with us because the age is not 35, the age is currently 16. That's why it says thanks for shopping with us. However, if we update this to be 35 and we come back here and we run this, what do we see? You get a 35% discount. So with all of this, we can pretty much combine everything into a single piece of code, right? We've seen conditional statements, we've seen variable assignment, all right? We've also seen comparison operators using double equal to. We've also seen the input function, which can all be put together to actually run pieces of code like this. Give me a thumbs up or type a 1 in the chat if all of this is making sense. We have one final piece for today's session, but type a 1 in the chat if everything makes sense so far. We can pass conditions and then we can specify an outcome if that condition is met. And if the condition is not met, we can pass an else statement and define what we want if that condition is not met. Fantastic. Now, we can put together all of our knowledge to practically implement a very simple example. We are running this for an e-commerce discount system, right? And this is what the scenario depicts. It says, imagine an e-commerce store. An e-commerce store wants to apply discounts based on the total amount a customer spends, right? And these are the rules for the discount. If the total is $500 or more, apply a 20% discount. If the total is between $200 and $499, apply 10% discount. And if the total is less than $200, no discount is applied. No discount is applied. Let's look at the code. To save us time, I've put this together. All right, so we'll simply run over it. With the knowledge that we have so far, I'll simply break things down. All right, so we have the total amount, which is a variable. And we've explained what this is, right? And this is basically the amount that has been spent in total within the business. So we can come in here and define this as a float and ask for an input. What was the total amount from this transaction? Enter the total amount, right? Enter the total amount. You can even streamline this process to use an input function to say, oh, how much did item 1 cost? how much did item 2 cost? By the time we are done with that, we get a total amount and then run with this loop. We've seen a practical example of doing that. But to make this simpler and straightforward, we are asking what was the total amount after we have applied this particular function on each item that gives us a total amount. What was that total amount? Pass it in here. All right? Let's pass it in here. Total amount, input the total amount. Now, when we get that total amount, we have 3 conditions. If it is greater than $500, so if this customer spends $500 or more, we are giving a discount of 20%, right? If this customer spent, so if the total amount is greater than or equal to 500, this is the condition. It has to be greater than or equal to $500. You want to give a discount of 20%. And then we say you get a 20% discount off your total amount. That's the message they get. So we calculate the discount and say they are getting a 20% discount. And all we are doing now is repeating the same process. For the next discount bracket, we say else if, because we want to pass another condition. Previously, we had just one condition, and we say if this condition is not met, do this. But now we want to pass multiple conditions. So we pass in another function called elif. Elif. This allows us to pass in another condition, and we say if it's 200, right? If it's 200 or less than the total amount. So the total amount has to not be less than 200. 200 has to be less than the total amount, but the total amount has to be less than 500. So the total amount has to be between $200 to $500. We are saying less than 500, so that will be $499. It has to be less than 500, between $200 to $499, and that's what we see here. If the total is between 200 and 499, apply a 10% discount. So we are saying if the total is between 200 and 499, the discount is a 10% discount. We give a 10% discount and we print, you get a 10% discount of, this is the amount. You calculate the amount here, assign a variable to that amount, and then we pass it into our print statement. However, if the amount does not fall under any one of these brackets, it is not between 200 to 500, and it is not more than 500, which means it's less than 200, there's no discount. Just tell the person no discount applied, and then give them their final amount. This is basically the entire code, applying everything that we have covered so far. And now when we run this, we are seeing the practical implementation of all the little chunks that we have covered and saying the discount is equal to 0, print no discount applied if the amount is less than $200. So we have a final calculation here to say final amount is equal to total amount minus discount, and say final amount you pay is this. The final amount you pay is this. So if we run this, when we run this, we get these prompts asking us enter the total amount. So what do we do? Obviously, we're going to enter the total amount. If the total amount I spent was $245, for example, I hit enter, what happens? It says you get a 10% discount of $24.5. The final amount to pay is $220. So instead of paying $245, I am paying $220.5, enjoying a 10% discount because I spent between $200 to $400. The same thing happens if I run this and say I spent 1,500 and I hit enter. How much discount do I get this time? Let's see, let's wait for that to run and give us an output. This time around, I'm spending 1,500 and I should get a 20% discount, right? By the code we have, I should get a 20% discount. So let's just give this another second. So far, we've been able to cover some basics, all right? From what a variable is, to how to assign variables, to how to run a print statement, and further going into how to run conditional statements and even using the input function to make our code interactive. And this is what we've been able to leverage to build a simple app that helps a business to run discounts, calculate how much the discount is, and tell the customer how much they get to pay as the final amount at the end of the day. We're able to automate this entire process. And now the cashier does not have to scratch their head every time someone spends above $500, and then they're calculating, oh, how much is 20% of this amount you're spending? How much do you get as a discount? How much is 10% of how much you're spending? And how much do you get as discount? How much do you get to pay at the end of the day? This simple piece of Python code helps us to automate a process like that. And this can be embedded into an application to help us run these discounts and give an output. If all of this makes sense so far, just type a 1 in the chat. If we've been following all through to the end, just type a 1 in the chat. So far, we've been able to break down Python step by step. We've been able to break down every single one of the stages, combine all of them together, and we are seeing a practical implementation of how Python can be applied in a real world scenario. I hope we enjoyed the conversation so far. And we are seeing that Python is actually very easy, very similar to English language, not as difficult as a lot of us might think. All right, very similar to English language. I'm going to be handing over to my colleague Muideen from here, who's going to be taking over and taking the rest of the session. I'm sure we've had an awesome time today. And like I said, we'll be getting all of this material sent across to us as long as we have filled out the attendance form. So please ensure you fill that out and we'll be sure to reach out to you. Thanks everyone for your attention.
Okay, I think Jedediah, we have just one question before I get into it. I think the question is from Yusuf. Are you able to take that before I dive into it?
Yes, sure. What's the question?
So Yusuf said, so will the cashier then come to the Google Colab to be able to use this, or how would this be available at the front end?
Okay, so like I said, this would be embedded into the application which is being used within the organization. So this environment allows you to write your code. However, this code can be put in like a container that can now be shared, right? That can now be embedded into another piece of item. It could be the application within the organization. It could be the website. It could be the application that the cashier is using to take in each transaction. Whatever it is, this can basically be embedded into another environment, can be embedded into another tool, and then you can see the outcome from it. All right, so
Right.
just look at Muideen's slide right now. You can see some other pictures. Those pictures were not built inside his slide, right? He was able to capture this picture in another location and then bring it into his slide, and you're able to see it and actually interact with it. All right, I think there was one other question, which I'm just going to take quickly. The question was, is there Python in French? So Python is a universal programming language. The syntax remains pretty much the same regardless of the language, right? So you can also pick this up even if you speak French, right? The syntax still remains the same, right? This syntax is pretty much universal. So you can pick it up, write your code, and be able to move on.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe a lot of people have gotten value. As the word says, this is 100% a beginner's class where you learn to write your first code in Python. And I believe that for everybody that has been here since when Jedediah started, even if you've never written a line of code in Python before, right now, I believe that when you get the video, recorded video into your email, this is something you'll be able to practicalize by yourself and actually be proud, like, oh, I've been able to do this, so I can do this. So these are some of the things that you get to learn when you work with analytics or when you learn with analytics. Well, boy, we even dive into what we're looking at as a data scientist. Now, many people might not really understand how important what Jedediah just did. And for people that know how important all these things are, what we did was, if you look at this particular page, you can see on your screen, this is a particular report from the World Economic Forum, and it was showing that between 2025 and 2030, in this span of these 5 years, we are going to create a total of 170 million jobs, meaning between 5 years, 170 million jobs that doesn't exist currently will be created. And at the same time, 92 million jobs will disappear. Anybody looking to transition or looking to get into the technical space or looking to change job or change their career path, this is something that should be of concern to you. Like, oh, if I'm looking to transition, I'm looking to get into this space, what gives me that validation that where I'm looking to get into is not going to disappear in years to come, right? And remember, when you fill the form, this particular report, you have ability to come over here, click on this, and be able to get direct access to it. Or you can just go on Google and search for the future of job reports by World Economic Forum. You have access to this. It is readily available to the public view for the public use. But when we're looking at the data science as a program, what we did was we further made in-depth analysis to identify, oh, so if people were asking people to go through the data science program and be able to do the same thing or even much more than what Jeddah just did, what are the values that organizations, what are that validations that organizations are looking for professionals like that? And we still got our answer from the World Economic Forum. And the reports they gave was showing the demand for roles, for job roles, the demand and the decline. So we have a lot of organizations that are looking for some career path, why some other career paths are literally dwindling down and literally will fade off. And in part of these roles or career paths that are really high in demand, if you could see the career path on the right side of my screen, this career path on the right side of my screen are showing you career paths that are gradually declining in demand, meaning a lot of organizations are not really leaning towards getting people in that space. Why the career path you see on the left side of my screen has a lot of demand from organizations, and the career progression and career growth in this path is also following that trajectory. And if you see the number one on the list, you have the big data scientist or the big data specialist, which is under the data and the data science. You also have AI and machine learning professionals, AI and machine learning specialists. This is under the data science path also. And this is the top three. The second one on the list is fintech engineer. The number one is big data specialist. Then you have AI machine learning specialist. So this will make you understand how important the data science role can be. You also have the data analyst and the data scientist also in that particular role. So this will make you understand that as a data scientist, once you have the skill, the demand to get into a role, and that role that will give you the opportunity to grow in your career path, it is perfectly available. But what you might need is not going to be 100% dependent on the skill you have to get into these roles. So when you're looking at, oh, what are the skills do I need to have to get a job as a data scientist in 2025, 2026? Now, looking at data science program, if you're looking at your key learning area, the things you get to learn, what Jeddah just did today is only walking you through Python. And this is about a small pinch of what you get to do using Python. There are a lot of libraries you get to use. There's a lot of things you get to use Python for. This is like beginner's class, which is what it is. So if you see the key learning area, the first thing you get to learn as a data scientist is your statistics. Just to get to use of numbers and how to use numbers to help whatever sort of analysis you're doing. It is fantastically or in high demand. So you get to, number one thing you get to do is statistics. Then after that, you learn how to do forecasting and predictive analysis using Microsoft Excel. Because as a data scientist, you play majorly in the aspect of numbers and the aspect of forecasting analysis. So when you're working around your data, when you're working around your information, you're always leaning to the aspect of predicting what is going to happen in the future. That is what you do majorly as a data scientist. So you have Excel, you learn Excel in this path. Then you also learn Tableau. Tableau is Salesforce, so you learn how to use Tableau for your analysis. Then you also learn SQL, then learn Python programming, part of what you've already seen today. You also can still get to learn Python programming for your explorative data analysis. That is when you're looking to work with data, clean the data, analyze the data to get insight from the data. check if this particular measure is responsible for another reason for something to happen. You do a lot of things with Python in this regard. You also do what we call machine learning. You use Python for machine model, and you have your supervised and your unsupervised machine model. Then you also have computer vision. A very good example of computer vision is this particular camera that is looking at me. It has been equipped by a data scientist that once I activate a background, whatever activity is going on behind me, you can see like literally everything happening behind me right now, you can see it. And that's because I've activated the background and the data scientist working with Zoom has been able to program the lens that once they activate the background, ignore every other thing and focus on only myself. Focus on the human-like figure in front of you. That is something you will be able to do as a data scientist. You also be learning GitHub version control and GitHub Copilot for coding. And where everything you'll be learning span for the duration of 6 months. So you'll be in class learning how to be a fantastic data scientist for 6 months, working on projects. And when you're done with your 6 months in class training, you have 2 month internship. Your internship is done with a company, a consulting company we partner with. So you get in with them and you work in a real life scenario whereby you get to work on projects, get to work on real world projects, building your skills and showcasing the skills that you have. And one of the value you'll be getting during your internship is because you see, during your 6 months, you will be working with projects from the start, that's from your statistics till you get to learn Microsoft Fabric. You're 100% working on projects, learning how to use Python, learning how to code in Python, learning your Excel, learning your SQL, whatever you're learning your Tableau, you're working around projects. Now, once you're done with that, this will give you hands-on skills to be able to get on a job and actually be able to perform as a data scientist. That's what the 6 months will give to you. And once you're done with the 6 months, you will get into internship with the consultancy firm where you get to work on real world projects. One of the things you get value for from this internship is all the projects you must have worked on during the internship. You have the ability to add them to your portfolio and showcase to anybody looking to hire you the skill you have. The project you must have also worked on during your internship, you also have the ability to put this in your portfolio to showcase what you have. Because look at what Jada just did. If any one of us own a restaurant or owns a supermarket and we are looking to automate processes like this, I will not hire anybody that tell me they can do it, but I would rather prefer to hire somebody that can actually show me they can do it or show me where they've done it before. This is exactly how it's spanned across the technical space. Anybody looking to hire you, they want to see what you can do or they want to see what you've done before. Now, for your 6 months, you get to work on different things. In your internship, you also get to do the same thing. And it doesn't stop there. So you see everything that you'll be doing, it will put you in that position to work as a data scientist. And if you're looking at roles you can work in, it's not limiting to, oh, data scientists. Because I know a lot of us, when we go into job boards, when we search for jobs, we literally search for the main job title. For example, I'm a data analyst. I want to go and search for job. I will go on job board, type data analyst or data analysis, and I will apply to literally everything I see under that. That is me limiting my abilities or limiting my application processes. Same thing is applicable to data science. When you know where and how to search for jobs, it makes it a lot more easier to get a job. And these are some of the rules you can apply to as a data scientist. And remember, as a data scientist, you are best of both worlds. You can get a job as a data scientist, and you can also function 100% in any job a data analyst can apply to. So if in a particular job board, they have 500 jobs for under data analysis, and they have 700 jobs under data science. Because you're a data scientist, you have ability to apply to a total of 1,200 jobs. That's the one for the data science and the one for the data analyst. These are some of the value that the program will be giving to you, right? So you will learn where and how to search for these jobs. Now you see everything I've talked about that you will learn, your Python, your Tableau, your SQL, your forecasting in Excel, all these I've talked about. These are your technical skills. And these stands at just 50% of what we tend to offer you. The other 50% is what we call the employability, meaning, oh, fantastic. Let's say, let me pick one person in the chat. So let's say Dr. Simbo is now fantastic. He or she is a fantastic data scientist, skilled at same level with Jedediah. How does that technical skill, how does it land you a job? How does that skill that you have, how does it translate to getting you a job? That is what the employability skill is about. When you're looking at the employability skill, the first on that is your CV. Because with your CV will be the first to get into any office, into any HR office, or any HR get to see it. How does your CV represent you? That's the first thing. So you will have an in-house expert that will work on your CV, build your CV and revamp your CV for you to be industry expert as a data scientist. And once you're done with that, you will also learn how to tailor your CV to roles you're looking to apply to. So if you're looking to apply to, let's say, for example, you're looking to apply to jobs like machine learning engineer, that job, that CV you're looking to use to apply to a machine learning engineer, you can definitely not take that CV and apply to a role like computer vision engineer because they are two different roles. There are two different responsibilities. There are different things you'll be doing on the job. So you will learn how to tailor your CV to each job you're applying to. If you apply to 10 jobs, you will learn how to tailor your master CV to these 10 jobs, meaning the CV you use to apply to all these 10 jobs, each of them will be different and tailored to each individual jobs. You will learn how to do this with in-house professional. Then you have your LinkedIn, where you have to, when you learn how to optimize your LinkedIn to give you further opportunity of landing jobs. You have lots of people that have been able to go through the training and they didn't even apply to a single job, but they ended up getting a job. How? Because they've been able to optimize their LinkedIn and showcase what they have, giving them the opportunity of having hiring managers see them, reach out to them directly via inbox, and giving them the opportunity to get a job, get interviewed. They're qualified enough and they'll get a job. We'll have lots of participants that have been able to get a job through this route. Then the next thing you have is navigating the job market. During your employability sessions, you will learn where and how to search for jobs, right? Not just your normal traditional Indeed, LinkedIn jobs. And so, no, you will learn exactly where to search for jobs, jobs that will literally give you almost everything you want. Then also, you're navigating the job market. We have some job boards that will partner with. Now, this partnership is premium partnership. And on these job boards, we get access to premium jobs that you will never find anywhere. So what we did, the only reason or the only place you find these jobs is if you yourself you go ahead to subscribe to this particular service. But we've taken that subscription, we subscribe to it, and we scrape all the jobs in these job boards, bring them into your classroom, and you have a direct opportunity to apply to these jobs directly without paying anybody anything, right? And this particular jobs they get updated every Monday. So you have fresh applications to always get to and apply to them as fast as you could. Then you have what we call interview preparation, meaning any job you're looking to get interview for, any, and I mean any, even if you have 10 interviews in a week, before you get into any of them, you have the right and the ability to jump into a one-on-one session with a professional to prepare you for that interview you're looking to get into. So let's say, for example, um, let me pick another person. So let's say Yusuf has today is let's say you should have an interview on Monday. Okay. Before Monday, Yusuf will get prepped for that particular interview by let's say Jedediah and maybe myself. And what we'll look out for is we'll look at your CV. look at the job you're applying to. Look at the company itself you're looking to apply to, because no matter the question that is coming up, it will be from your CV, it will be from the job description, and it will be from the company you're applying to. Let's say the company's culture. How do you understand the company you're looking to get into? So you get prepared for roles before you get into it. And definitely you have opportunity to get reference letter when you get the job. Then there's something we also call on-the-job support, meaning you're on the job and you've been through analytics, you're on the job, you need some sort of guidance. You have ability to reach out to us, and we have a professional that will come on board with you and guide you through whatever sort of challenge you might be having. Then, considering everybody cut across different sector of the economy, nobody is really in the tech space. So, and you're looking to transition into this path, having a mentor hold your hand and guide you through what to do, when to do it is priceless. So you get access to mentorship sessions. They happen every Thursday. So you get access to that to be able to have your mentor guide you through how do you do this? How do you present yourself? How do you communicate? How do you answer questions? How do you deal with imposter syndrome? You know this, but you have a doubt in your head telling you you don't know how to do this. We'll show you people that have been through this particular route before and they've been very good. These people will hold your hand and walk you through the same challenges you might be facing. You have access to all this in the training. Then you also have what we call Upwork optimization. This is looking at Upwork is a freelance platform. So you will learn how to set up your profile in such platform to be able to offer your services to both individuals and organization at the same time, right? So these are the things you get value to or get value for 100%. And by the time you are done with your training, you get the ability. Remember, you get the ability to have 10 analytics on your CV and also Amdari on your CV. Amdari is the company that will partner with where you get to work as during your internship. So you have ability to have both companies on your CV. And we've had people that's been able to go through the training and they've been able to land a job. This particular lady on my screen, this is Ene Ojaide. She went through the data science program and she was able to get a job in as a data scientist for a company in Germany. She currently lives in UK and she works fully remotely for a company in Germany. All right, that is something that a lot of us are looking up to, like, oh, I want to work fully remotely. The opportunity is there. The only thing that is lacking is the technical skills. And it's not limiting to just that. We have Abdul Rashid. Abdul Rashid actually currently lives in Nigeria. He's in Abuja. And he was able to get, he went through the data science program and he was able to get himself a full-time job living in Nigeria and working with Child 420 in US. He currently went through the data science program, practiced everything we taught him during the mentorship, and he was able to secure himself a role in this path. We've also had this particular Christ, his name is Christian. So he joined the program when he was actually 17 and he was able to get a job as a data analyst. He actually joined the data analytics program, not the data science, but was able to get a job 18. So that will make you understand that age has nothing to do with this. The most important part of everything you're looking at achieving stays within your technical skills, your technical capacity, and what you've been able to do with these technical skills. And for you and we'll have lots of participants that have been able to go through the training. Benga was able to land a job after his training. Ololade was able to get his PR after the training, leveraging the experience she picked up during the data science program. Bukola, she's based in Poland. She was able to get a job as a people data scientist after the data science program. So you will know that any part of the world, the skill you have is valuable. And for you looking to join the next cohorts, our next cohort is starting by 4th of October. So if you're looking to pick up your skill, take that decision, change your career path, pick up something that is in value, that is valuable, you have opportunity to do that by the 4th of October. So the next class is starting by 4th of October. And to join this particular cohort, the current price is 1,000 US dollars. That's the current price for the program. Price is 1,000 US dollars, but you get an opportunity If you're part of the first 20 people to register before this discount is over, you have the opportunity to get a whopping 25% discount. So with the 25% discount, instead of you paying 1,000, you get to pay 750 US dollars. And it gets better. If you click on the link that my colleagues are sharing in the chat box, you will see, if you go on that, click on that link and you go to the website, which I'll also show you, you will see that you have ability to take advantage of the 25% discount to have you pay 750 US dollars. Then at the same time, have ability to pay in installments, meaning you can create a payment plan around this 750. You have ability to pay one time or pay all at once. But if that will be too much for you, you have ability to pay twice, three times, four times, or even five times. So if you're looking to pay your 750 five times, that will be you paying 150 US dollars every month for 5 months. I'm going to walk us through how to be able to make that payment and secure a spot in this regard. So if you click on that particular link that my colleague are sharing in a chat box, it will take you to the Tenalytics website where you have ability to click on the program, which is data science, or if you're looking to get into data analytics or any of the other program, you have the same opportunity to do that on that particular slide. So with that, let me show you how to secure your spot. So if you click on that link, it should bring you to this website. Let me share that part of my screen. Part of my screen is not being shared. Okay, so it should bring you to this website where you have ability to secure your spot. So what you want to do is you want to scroll down to the full stack data science. So here it is. You want to scroll down to the full stack data science, click on buy now. So once you click on buy now, you have ability to just click on enroll. So once you click on buy now, you will see enroll now over here. Click on the enroll now, and you have the ability to secure your spot and join the program. Now, you see that particular 25% discount. If you are looking at, oh, today is 25th of November, sorry, 25th of September, I'm not so certain if October 4th will work for me because I need to put some things in order. I need to plan my schedule. I need to plan my work calendar, my roster. I need to do some other things that 4th of October might not be possible for me. The discount is applicable for you to start in November, and the class starting in November start by the 8th of November. So if you click on that link and come to this website, you have ability to select either October or November. So whichever one that works for you, select it. But for the sake of this example, I'll select the October. Then what you want to do is you want to select a payment plan that works for you. You have the one-time payments, you have the two times payments. You will see that the 3, 4, and 5 has 750, which is the 25% already discounted price. But if you're looking to pay once or twice, the total you're seeing there is $712. That is because the current value of money is applicable. If you're looking to pay once or twice, you agree with me that is way more valuable than if you're looking to spread the payment. So this will encourage you and give you additional discounts to pay once or twice. But if this will not be possible for you, you have ability to pay in installments 3 times, but you get to pay if you're looking to pay 3 times, you pay 250 US dollars every month for 3 times, every month for 3 months. If you're looking to pay 4 monthly installments, you get to pay 187 every month for 4 months. Or if you're looking to pay 5 times, you get to pay 150 US dollars every month for 5 months. So let's say for this example, I want a payment plan that will be very comfortable for me, considering my finances. I want to select the 5 installments. So you want to make sure you select the 5 monthly installments, then click on apply discount. Once you do this, in your own case, it will prompt you to set up your profile so that you'll be able to register. As you can see, I've already set up my own account, so I'm able to access this. So what you want to do there is You want to go through the payment, you see that your payment is going to come in. Today is 25th. Your next payment is coming on the 25th of October, 24th of November, 24th of December, and 23rd of January, where you get to pay your last 150 US dollars. So you want to scroll down and you want to confirm that your information is correct. Then you also want to go through the terms and conditions. You want to read it. Then after reading it, select it. Then once you're done selecting it, you want to pay directly from the website. So this is how you secure a spot. Remember, if October is too near for you, you have the ability to secure a spot and join in November. But the big surprise there, or the big important information there, is this particular 25% discount hence tomorrow, 26th of September, hence tomorrow. If you see where I was showing you the previous slide on my when I was on my slide, you will see over here that it says the 25% discount hence on the 26th of hence on the 26th of September. So anything aside from after 26th of September, you get a 20% discount. And the 20% discount is even limited to 29th of September. So you want to try as much as possible. Take that decision now. Split your payment. Remember, you have ability to pay in installment, split it, and secure a spot so you don't miss out on the discount. And definitely, by the time you're done with your training, you will be getting a certificate or and your certificate is accredited by the American Council of Training and Development. Okay, so you want to try as much as possible to make sure you secure a spot, get into the in-demand job, get skilled, and be able to get opportunity to get into a career path that is destined for growth and definitely a big salary. Because I don't know if anybody's here for the money, because me personally, I love money. Okay, so definitely it's something that I will be looking to consider. And for people that you are probably seeing what everything Jedediah did, you are not so certain if um Python is for you, you're so scared, you have ability to take this particular quiz. I can drop this link in the chat box so that you have access to it. Let me copy this link and share in the chat box. So if I have anybody that is not certain if Python or data science is for them, I just drop this link in the chat box. You want to click on that. The quiz is going to ask you some personal trait questions like, do you like to communicate? Are you a numbers person? Do you like Python? Have you done anything in Python before? How do you feel in a group of people? These are the questions that this particular quiz will ask you. And by the time you're done, it will be able to predict which program is the best one for you, a career path that if you get into, based on your personality, you will totally excel on them. All right. So you want to try as much. If Python, data science is something you don't want to get into, you don't know if you'll be able to survive it, you have ability to take that quiz and get into the tech space without missing out anything. All right. I don't know, and definitely we have lots of people. I can't share all their details, talk about them, but we have lots of people, like thousands of people that have been able to go through the training and they've been able to get themselves a job in this space. So if you're looking to transition, definitely you want to consider this and get into the sports 100%. If there's any question, you can drop it in the chat box and I will be yeah, if you have any questions, you can drop in the chat box and definitely I'll be able to answer you. So Dimeji, I will send you my email so you can email me and we can discuss, okay? So, Dimitri, I've sent you my email, so you can just send me your email, send me anything you want, and I'll be able to answer it. Okay, so Yusuf said, is there option to add application of choice to the learning path? So what do you mean by application of choice? Dimitri, you're welcome. Yusuf Abdul Karim, what do you mean by application of choice? Give me an example of what you mean by that. A Power Platform. Okay, so you as a data scientist, if you look at the job boards generally and requirements of what you need as a data scientist, hardly will you have jobs posting and saying they need you to have power skill in Power Apps. Power App is totally different because for Power Apps you get to use it for different there are different things, there are different tools in there and you get to use it for different things. Some of them use it to build a mobile application without necessarily needing to code. One of it is also Power BI. In your learning path, you have Microsoft Fabric. That is being included in what you get to learn. Okay. And the reason why we have this, yeah, Power Automate, Power Apps, yes. So you don't add them to your learning per se, but you have Microsoft Fabric. And the reason why you have Microsoft Fabric is this is something new announced by Microsoft, and a lot of organizations are now starting to adopt the environment. So for you right now, you will hardly see, I can bet you like if you go on job boards, you will hardly see organizations even asking you to have skill in Microsoft Fabric because it's not something that is really out there yet. So the reason why you're learning Microsoft Fabric is so that you be prepared for what is to come. So when like let's say 3, 5 years from now, the organization is looking to scale and start to have everybody in a single environment in Microsoft Fabric, you already have the skill, and this will give you an opportunity to even be able to get promoted into a much more senior role where you can further teach people and how to do a lot of things using Microsoft Fabric. When it comes to Power Hard, Power Automate, these are tools that a lot of organizations are not really using. We actually offer a training in that before, but that was about 2 years ago. So that will tell you how still Power App and Power Automate is. They don't have a lot of organization really asking for it anymore. So you don't have it. No, you don't. Do we have any further questions? And remember, your the discount for this particular program ends tomorrow. So if you're looking to take advantage of the discount, so that it has been shared. If you just scroll up, you will see my colleague, it's Analytics Enquiry, share the link. It says get this limited spot with 25% discount off, early bird discount. So you want to click on that tenalytics.io/instructor-led courses. Click on that. It will take you directly to the website. Okay. You should have said my job requires as an analyst on a daily basis. That is why I asked. Okay. So if that is why, no, you don't have it in the data science program. Okay, you don't have it in a data science program. I think that is to answer Yusuf. Dr. Simbo, okay, my colleague just shared that link again under your chart, so you should get access to that. Do I have any other person that have questions before we wrap it up for the day? Remember, if you once you click on that link, it will take you to the website where you'll be able to make payments directly. So try as much as possible to secure a discount because after tomorrow, the discount goes to 20%, and from 20%, you get 15%. The value you already have from this session, I believe, while Jedediah was on it, everybody was following, so you can know what type of value you will be getting from your training. So you want to try as much as possible to secure spots before the discount runs out. We have about 6 minutes before this session ends. Does anybody have any question that they might want to ask before we end the session? Does anybody have any further questions before the session ends? If there is no question, Wema as well. Any question, or does anybody want to speak? You also have ability to ask for your mic to be unmuted. I will unmute your mic and you can get to speak. can just use the indicate with the raise hand, and I will ask you to unmute your mic if you want to speak or ask a question. Okay, okay, all right. Okay. I don't think there's yes, Adi, you can pay in Naira. The website is geotagged, meaning you can pay in Naira, you can pay in cities, you can pay in pounds, you can pay in euros, wherever you're joining from, you have ability to pay directly without needing any sort of currency exchanger. So, Adi, if you go on that particular website, you will see that you have ability to pay directly in Naira. So yes, you can. You don't need a US card or anything for the payment. You can use your direct Nigerian card for that. Okay. Then you also have ability to pay in installments. I think for Naira, you get to pay, I think, 240. If you select the 5 instrumental, you get to pay 240,000 Naira every month for 5 months. If you click on the website, you will see that information. Okay. Dr. Simbo, yes, you're welcome. Okay. So, the absence of any further questions, thank you all for being here. I think we spent quite some time. We've learned what Python is like for those of us that have never used Python or never seen Python before. We've seen how these tools are used in our day-to-day. We all go to the supermarket, we all go to stores, and we get clocked out. They scan our products, they just tell us the price, the deal of the discount. You see all these things written on your receipt. When you do that, picture it in your head like, oh, that is something that was programmed from the back end. And on the front desk, everything is just getting done, scanned, and making the process easier for the companies. You have the opportunity to learn how to get this done because that's the skill that almost everybody needs. There's no company that wouldn't need you to have the skill as a data scientist. All right. So try as much as possible to secure a spot. And I'll be looking forward to have each and every one of you in class by 4th of October. And remember, if 4th of October is too near, you need to put some things in plan. Or you might even want to get a laptop, you want to fix your laptop, you want to set anything. Remember, you always have ability to take advantage of this current discount and start in November. The next class starts 8th of November. So you have opportunity to get that discount and take the decision to change the career path. At the absence of any further questions, thank you for being here, and I'll be looking forward to see each and every one of you in class in 4th of October. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Cheers and bye for now.